As simple as the story may seem for Flushed Away, it is truly far more malicious and evil than anyone would have previously thought. However, unlike the other subjects we've seen so far in The Secret Lore, Flushed Away's story is much closer to the surface level. It doesn't take much to figure out that these characters and their motivations are very much flawed, and this leads to a movie that may seem like it has a happy ending, but in all reality is much darker than it seems. Today on The Secret Lore, we are going to be taking a look at every nook and cranny of Flushed Away and uncover the true story that Aardman Animations was trying to share with their first fully CGI film. The first piece of secret lore we must talk about pertains to Roddy and his owner's collection of dolls and action figures. In the beginning of the film, it's made clear that Roddy interacts with these action figures and dolls in various ways, such as going to see movies with them, playing sports with them, and occasionally dating and talking to them. It is to paint a picture in a way of Roddy's loneliness, but it goes much further than just some interaction and innocent fun. Roddy's intentions with these dolls and action figures are actually far more risque than the movie lets on. Due to the film's PG rating, much of this cannot be shown, but it can for certain be determined that Roddy has had multiple sexual encounters and maybe even prolonged relationships with these dolls and action figures. It becomes obvious with Rita's family that rats can have quite high libidos, and Roddy is no different. By my calculations, I would be surprised if there was in fact any doll or action figure or stuffed animal that was not violated by the rat at some point in some grotesque manner. Roddy was also likely to take risks with these sexual explorations, doing some things that most likely couldn't be said on YouTube, but I can assure you would shock even the most risque and disgusting of sex degenerates. Privacy builds comfort, and comfort builds the ability to take some minor risks, especially when those risks have no chance of hurting those around you or yourself. These risks were of course strange ways of fucking the dolls and action figures. That being said, Roddy's sexual deviancy isn't the only implied throughout this film. The main villain, the Toad, also seems to have some sexual deviancy built into his character when we see his collection of items from the royal family. It's clear that the Toad fetishizes and romanticizes the royal family to a point that probably gets quite disturbing. When Roddy destroys all of these materials, it is as if the Toad is set free. However, he no longer cares for this collection of royal family goods, except for a jewel atop his scepter towards the end of the film. However, all of his jerk-off material is destroyed by Roddy. This effectively kills the Toad's libido, which explains why he suddenly turns to nothing but anger. Without a way to relieve that buildup of stress through yanking it, he turns to an evil monster. Roddy is of course the hero of this story because he is able to relieve himself of his amassing semen inside his body. It's an interesting strategy to differentiate the hero and villain of a story by giving them something in common, such as very high libidos, and then explaining that Roddy, the hero, is able to relieve himself, but the Toad is unable to because Roddy took that ability away from him when he destroyed the royal family collection. It builds for a very unique story that most likely has never been told before, or at least had been told before, but was hidden deep within the secret lore. Our next piece of secret lore pertains to Rita and her father, and his devious plans, and why he's in a wheelchair covered in bandages throughout the entirety of the film, and most likely will be for the entire remaining duration of his life. Rita seeks something very similar to what the Toad seeks throughout the film. Once again, Aardman Animations drawing lines between our heroes and the main villain. Although Rita's libido is never questioned throughout the film, although it is presumed to be somewhat strong with her attraction to Roddy, her motivations for getting rid of the toads clearly are present. She wants to remove them because they are a danger to her family and the rats, just as the toad views the rats as a danger to his family and the toads as a whole. It is as if a battle for a master race among the version of Sewer London. However, it never goes as far as this, although one character would want it to go as far as this. It can be seen at the end of the film that Rita is not looking for a master race, as she lets in these slugs and various other critters around Sewer London. She is not outlawing all creatures but rats, but instead letting in others that come through and removing those that are dangerous, such as the evil toad. However, her father has different plans, and it can be seen throughout the duration of the film when he is present. Rita's father is wrapped in bandages and is in a wheelchair for very specific reasons. It's because if he weren't, he would produce an enormous army to conquer all of the sewer realms. We can already see with the size of Rita's family that her father's libido is unlike anything compared to Roddy or even the toad himself. His libido is so powerful he can produce children at a shocking rate, creating a pseudo-army in his mind to conquer the many realms and vanquish all that are not rats. However, Rita most likely saw of this plan. As much as she hated the toads, she did not want her father's greed and borderline racism dominating the sewer realms below. After all, it can be presumed that if there is a sewer London, there is most likely other British towns in the sewer and maybe even other countries within the sewers, such as sewer Germany or sewer Russia. All of these places were to be conquered by Rita's father, but Rita had a better idea. She decided to move her family into a rickety house in the sewer, a house that rolled back and forth, a house that would quickly injure her father, making it impossible for him to reproduce until he is healed. Now, of course, this plan she must keep a secret, because if her father knew of her plans, he may be able to convince the siblings around them into revolting and then quickly turning to an army, which is the opposite of what Rita wants. So, this secret kept, she put her father in the house, maintaining a good standing relationship with him while also keeping him in a prolonged and everlasting state of injury, unable to reproduce and create any more children. However, as time went on in this house, as we see throughout the film, many of the children get smashed inside the house, most likely killing many of them. So while Rita's plan to stop her father did in fact work and corrected the path that he was going on for world domination, she also killed many of her family members, and it is presumed that after the film's runtime, many more would pass away. It's an interesting piece of secret lore because it proposes if there ever were a sequel of Rita's father being the villain, if he were to ever fully heal and produce a full rat army to conquer the sewer realms. However, this never happened for good reason, because that story was already controlled if you dig deep enough for the secret lore in Flushed Away. It can be seen rather clearly and obviously that Rita's father's ideals for world domination were smashed, as well as were many of his children when he was put inside of that very rickety house that was keeping him in a prolonged state of injury. Now, it seems that these two pieces of secret lore we've talked about are the only two within the film. However, there are some small details I wish to discuss before concluding this video and look at Flushed Away. The first, of course, being the fate of the character Sid, who takes the place of Roddy at the end of the film. Mistaking Sid for Roddy as intended, the little girl who owns the rat comes back from holiday with a cat. This immediately implies that Sid's fate is sealed. With no one to pull the lever on the toilet, he is to be eaten and torn apart by the cat. It's an inevitability. He either dies at the hands of the cat or he lives in constant fear and agony as punishment for how he treated Roddy throughout the film. This, of course, is readily available information, but one piece to the keen eye is also interesting. There seems to be some merchandise for the film Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit throughout the little girl's room, such as a full stuffed Gromit or a small rabbit on the ground. The rabbit could possibly be overlooked as just a common design within the world, but the large stuffed Gromit is clear and obviously the character from the film, meaning that these two films most likely take place in the same universe, where Wallace and both Gromit are celebrities of sort working throughout the world. However, there is more to this theory than just a stuffed animal. In Curse of the Were-Rabbit, a film that predates Flushed Away just by 1 year, Wallace and Gromit are both exterminators of sorts, and it's very much possible that they could be contracted to deal with an issue in the sewers with these rats. That being said, it can be deduced that at some point in time, Wallace and Gromit, while acting as exterminators, perhaps took a trip to the sewers in an attempt to disband and destroy Sewer London. The plot of Curse of the Were-Rabbit makes it very clear that Wallace and Gromit are very skilled exterminators, and if they were in fact sent to Sewer London, it can be deduced that all of the main characters in Flushed Away were killed at the hands of Aardman Animation's mascots. It's a grim and dark end to these characters, but I think the connection with having a stuffed animal that is Gromit within the room proves far too strong to say otherwise. The entire cast and characters of Flushed Away are killed at the hands of Wallace and Gromit at the end of the film. This now brings us to the end of this episode of The Secret Lore on Flushed Away. If there is any film you've seen that you feel there is deeper meaning to, post it in the comments below, and I will do the research for you. Flushed Away, while it does not have much secret lore to it, does have just enough to raise a few eyebrows, and perhaps plays in and ties into other Aardman Animation films. This, of course, is something we're going to have to wait and see as I explore more of Aardman's catalog here on The Secret Lore. But until then, I will see you all in the next video.